Good day, everyone. I am Sharina Claustro and I am here to report Module 14, Part 2 on planning the interview. Earlier, my group mates discussed the radio interview and the different types of podcast interviews. And it's pretty amazing because this ties in with our upcoming TMA where we get to do a real interview for our radio magazine. I know we all feel the pressure, so I'm hoping that diving into the planning side of interviews earlier shed some light on us. So, from choosing the topic, identifying your objectives, preparing the interview protocol, and checking the arrangements. So, I hope you will take all this into account when you're gearing up for your interview. But of course, there's more. At this point, I will continue to discuss the second part of planning an interview, which will discuss the following. First, preparing the questions, on using notes, and last is winding the interview. So basically, we will discuss the do's and don'ts of getting our questions ready and see how they play a crucial role in making our interviews smooth. So let's start the discussion. Probably at this point, you are now trying to visualize and see where to start on our interviews. But before diving into an interview, it's crucial to invest time in preparing your questions. So the first thing you need to do is organize your thoughts, organize your questions in a logical order. So as we put all our thoughts on our paper, we have to be mindful on veering off from the planned topic. This is always a tendency of some radio announcers when they fail to discuss other subjects that might, be intriguing for the audience. So we have to stay focused and keep to the point. Next, good questions naturally bring out good answers. But how do we formulate good questions? So we have to do our research and prepare. If we can guess what our interviewee might say beforehand, it makes it easier to guide the conversation and get useful information from them. Next, ask questions that will get answers. So we have to make sure our questions are well thought to get insightful quotes instead, of short, one-word responses or brief or sometimes unhelpful replies. So when preparing a questions for a radio interview, it's essential to consider the different types of information that we want to gather. So the first question is who. So we have to craft questions that prompt the interviewee basic information. This is particularly useful for introducing individuals or guests on our radio. Next is what. So we have to frame questions that ask for detailed descriptions or explanations. So these questions help us in elaborating on specific topics or concepts, providing the audience with a clear understanding. Next is if your goal is to discuss events or timelines, use the question when, no, to pinpoint the timing of occurrences. Next, if our location is relevant to your interview or to our interview, we have to structure our questions that's specify or that has specific places associated with the topic. So this adds a spatial dimension to the discussion. Next, if we need to delve into the motivations, reasons, or explanations behind a certain actions or event, we need to use the why questions. So this adds depth and context to the information being shared. Last is the question how. So when we need to seek opinions or interpretation, we have to formulate questions using how. So these allow interviewees to express their thoughts, providing a platform for discussion and analysis. So this whole approach, the 5 Ws and 1 H questions, ensures a concise and effective strategy for gathering diverse information during our interview. So now, let's go to the do's and don'ts on preparing our questions. So number one, avoid questions that yield yes or no answer. So yes or no answers are often unusable. So they are useful only if you need to establish a fact that will open the way for a new line of questioning, or sometimes if you need to emphasize his or her position on a very concerning issue. For instance, if you ask someone if they supported using a certain type of porn and they say yes, you can ask them by why did you endorse it or why did you support it. So these questions are like building blocks that help us uncover facts and explore deeper into the topic. Second is to avoid questions that call for a monologue. So for example, the question is, will you tell me what your position is regarding the environment problems in this country? So what's the problem with the question? Basically, it's too vague and it's not clear. So it's like, asking your interviewee to talk forever. So instead, focus your question on one specific thing, like uh, what do you think is, or what do you consider as the most urgent environment problem of this town? So this way, you avoid getting a short answer or making the interview feel awkward. So keeping your questions interactive and just the right length for a smooth conversation. Ask clear questions. So using clear, simple, and straightforward questions makes it easier for people to understand and engage in conversations. So we need to keep our questions simple and avoid complicated ones like this. Kung pag-uusapan po natin ang tungkol sa kandidatura niyo, attorney, ano ang sinasabi ng mga mamamayan? Sa pagkakaalam ko po kasi ayon sa nabalitaan namin ay hindi raw kayo kakandidato, na ang dahilan ay dahil daw sa gusto kayong ikandidato sa pagkagobernador ng presidente at hindi sa pagkakongresista tulad ng gusto ng inyong asawa. So, what is the problem with that question? Basically, it's too long, too complicated, and too many questions, right? So, to make it simpler, focus on one main point at a time. Don't mix different issues. Keep them separate and untangled. It helps us making the conversation clearer and more effective. So progress from point to point. To achieve a logical flow, we need to make sure each question connects to the one before it, and if we need to go back to a previous point, do it smoothly. So for example, mabalik po tayo sa inyong kandidatura. Sino po ang inyong makakasama sa pagka-vice gobernador sa tiket ng inyong partido, attorney? Hmm. Pumayag na po ba si Mayor na kumandidato sa pagka-vice gobernador? So you see, each question should naturally follow the answer to previous one. So if the topics aren't closely related, use a bridge to connect them, like this. Ngayon, attorney, mula sa inyong kandidatura, ibalik naman natin ang usapan sa inyong pamilya. So these are the example of progress question. Next, avoid double questions. So ask one question at a time, otherwise the interviewee can ignore rather one question which want to answer. Even the most willing of subjects may forget one half of a double question. So an example of double question is like this. Attorney, ano pong uri ng protesta ang inyong gagawin? At hindi po naman kaya magkaroon ng pagkilos ng pamahalaang bayan tungkol dito? So you see the redundancy of that question? Okay, so that's the example of double question.